Good morning, y'all. It's Joe. We're back again under the shade tree. And today's project, I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning up some of the wiring behind the gauge cluster. Initially, I went ahead and tapped into the original Dodge wire harness and cut apart the two connectors that did go ahead and hook up to the gauge cluster. Just to go ahead and make sure that everything would work with the aftermarket gauges I'm using. And so it was working, and while I was working on the windshield wiper motor, I realized that there's just a huge mess of just wire back on the back side of the gauge cluster that's just waiting to go ahead and get tangled up in moving pieces, or worse yet, short out and start a fire. And we don't want that with Ethel. I mean, it looks like friggin' Walt Disney threw up. I mean, it's multicolored spaghetti in there. So the plan today is to go ahead and tidy things up a little bit, and I'll show you what I've got in mind. Okay, if y'all have ever gone ahead and looked into like the WeatherTech connectors or the Deutsch connectors, you know just how expensive that stuff is. It looks really nice, it works great, but pardon the wind here, give me a second. Okay, I'm trying to get down out of the wind here a little bit, and I got my little monster barking in the background. So if you ever looked into the WeatherTech or WeatherPack or the Deutsch connectors, you know how expensive those things are. And I don't have $400 or $500 for special tools to go ahead and put connectors together. I'm not sponsored by WireCare. Gosh bless them. I mean, they've got some really nice equipment, but I cannot afford to play in that game. So here's what I'm using. I found these connectors on Amazon. It's a 5-piece kit, well, 10-piece kit technically. It's 5 male, 5 female, 6 wires per connector. Okay, and so I'm going to use these guys so that way I can go ahead and have basically 2 connectors to handle all the wiring for the backside of my gauge cluster, rather than having wiring go to each and every individual gauge, and then have to go ahead, if I want to remove the cluster, I have to go ahead and disconnect each wire from each gauge. This way I can go ahead and disconnect 2 connectors and have the whole assembly out, other than the capillary line for the oil gauge. So that's what we're going to clean up. Okay guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I shortchanged you on video content today. I was kind of hustling, trying to go ahead and stay ahead of the weather because it's getting ready to rain again. And so I didn't stop and video the progress, but I will show you what I did get done. Right, this is some of the crap that was behind the gauge cluster that I cut out. And basically all these little cheap comeback connectors, you know, anybody that works on vehicle electronics, you know exactly why they're called comeback connectors. I went ahead and I took all those out. I went ahead and made nice clean power and ground harnesses for the gauges, so everything's nice and tight now. I also went ahead and cleaned up a bunch of extra wire that was back underneath there. And since I was under there, I'll show you what else I did. I installed this goodie right here. Classic Instruments Fuel Link, and basically what this does is it calibrates the fuel gauge that I have to go ahead and work with the factory Dodge sending unit. The gauge I've got was supposed to be more or less compatible. I think it's 30 by 240 ohms, something like that. And basically ever since I've had the truck running and the gauge cluster in, my fuel gauge has read backwards. Didn't really work that well, but if it started out near empty, I knew my tank was relatively full, and once it started getting close to full, I knew I was getting closer to empty, and I also kept track of it with my fuel mileage. And I also kept track of it with my odometer. Okay, so the little magic Fuel Link box is now tucked away up in the crown here over top of the gauge cluster. And what I've got going is my fuel gauge will now go ahead and work like it's supposed to. My tank is relatively full. I just filled it yesterday. Haven't driven much since. Check it out. Check it out. We're going to full. The other neat thing is I've got it set up with a low fuel light. I don't normally drive until the low fuel light comes on, but I think this one comes on, or it's programmed to come on from the manufacturers when there's about 10% fuel left. So, you know, at least that gives me a little extra warning. Not that I ever drive it that low, but I went ahead and calibrated it. There's a nice little calibration feature. Just follow the directions, push the buttons. The last thing I did today was I went ahead and put a piece of this foam pad, as closed cell foam stuff comes with the window mount air conditioning units. I went ahead and I put a piece of that on that piece of tin that was behind or between the gauge cluster and the wiper transmission arm. That way, heaven forbid there's a loose wire floating around, it will not go ahead and ground directly to steel. It'll go ahead and push up against this. Not to mention this will go ahead and keep a wire from chafing against bare metal. So we shouldn't go ahead and have issues with wires shorting out, grounding out, starting fires, things like that. Because fires in trucks and cars are not good things. Anyway, that's where we're at. That's what I've done today. Like I said, I apologize for shortchanging you all on the content. There's my wire diagram notes, which wire did what. So anyway, like I said, I apologize for shortchanging on content today. Really trying to go ahead and hustle things up and get this project done before the weather started to rain again. It's been a nice day, a little bit breezy. I'm sure you can go ahead and hear the wind in the microphone on this from time to time. That's why I've got my head stuck in my phone stuck in the cab here to shield it from the wind. But like I said, just a short little project that turned into a bigger project, and then of course I started hustling along trying to get things done before weather became a factor, and made the most of what's left of my day off. Anyway, y'all be safe, be good to each other. We'll see you the next go around. Remember to go ahead and support the channels you like, share them with your friends, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Community, not competition. I don't do this for money, I do this for fun, and try and share a little bit of wisdom along the way. Anyway, y'all be good, be safe. We'll see you next time.